What's up, guys? Rick here with your DFS preview for this week's Houston Open. This is the final event before we get to Augusta for the Masters, which should be a lot of fun. Couple of scheduling items. Now, usually the salaries get released early for major championships, so my plan is to still release the full DFS video Monday, the week of the Masters, but I will try to do a first look or something of that nature when the salaries do drop, hopefully at some point this week. There is a live chat this week, Wednesday, 3 p.m. Eastern time on the Rick Run Good YouTube channel. We will do Houston Open ownership, questions and answers, potential weather stuff. There was a lot of good things that came out of the Bermuda Championship live chat last week in terms of what wave of players you wanted to play with all that wind kicking up, and we did okay at the Bermuda Championship. We'll talk about that in just a second. Everything that you see in this video is from RickRunGood.com. That's my website, golf database, models, trends, all that good stuff. If you sign up now, it gets you access, obviously, through Augusta. If you get the monthly, I mean, it's just going to be a sprint for the rest of the season. There's going to be a lot of great tournaments, lots of big contests on DraftKings, FanDuel, wherever else you might be playing. There are two winners from last week that I drew. So Chris Kish and Jamie Brown, congratulations. You guys are winning subscriptions to RickRunGood.com. If you would also like to enter a draw to win a subscription to RickRunGood.com, there are two ways to do it. If you're on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed to the Rick Run Good YouTube channel. Like this video and tell me your favorite golfer in the $10,000 range. I believe there's 5 this week. There is. And the other way to win is leave a 5-star rating and review on Apple iTunes for the podcast version of this show. It is called 300 Yards to Unknown. The link is in the description. Say something nice about the show. Leave your Twitter handle so I can get in touch with you. Last week, so I was traveling. You guys know that if you were paying attention. There was only a sleepers video. There was not a fades video. We did some of the fades on the live stream on Wednesday, but sleepers were as follows. Justin Suh missed the cut. Unfortunately, he was one of the most popular golfers on the slate last week. Patrick Rogers finished T59, played well for about one round, made the cut, didn't do much after that. Wesley Bryan shot like a 78 on Friday and missed the cut. Really bad. But the good ones were Michael Gligic, who was $6,500, tied for 11th. That was a huge boost to my lineups for the week. And then Doug Gim finished in T14. So a couple of sleepers did come through for us as well. I'm trying to think what else before we jump into the course history, which there is none, but we can talk through the course. I think that's it. Let's do it. Course. All right, Memorial Park. This is in Houston, Texas. Keep in mind, this is not the same course we've seen. In fact, this is the first time in recent history that Memorial Park has been on the PGA Tour schedule. It actually did host this event 14 different times from 1947 to 1963. So certainly no shot link data, no real use of information coming from those years. A couple other notes. This event was not played in 2019. This event and Greenbrier were the casualties that year. There was a year off where they didn't end up playing them. So you're going to see when we get to the course history, or when we get to the cheat sheet, you're going to have last year's course history, which is 2020. So that's 2020 season, because right now we're in the 2021 season. And then you're going to see a blank column for 2019, and then you're going to see 2018 and 2017. So that's what's going on there. It is a par 72, which has 5 par 5s and 5 par 3s. Now, that 5 par 5s, that's very rare on the PGA Tour. The last time we saw it, though, was just a couple of weeks ago at Sherwood Country Club. So we are going to be looking for golfers who are able to take apart those par 5s. A handful of the par 3s are longer than normal, and it is Bermuda grass greens. We do have some boots on the ground a little bit, got a bit of inside information. So par 72, 7,400 yards. Normally in some of these situations, I say, some of these weaker field events, I say like, oh boy, you can bomb it around here without any regard for the rough. You're definitely going to be able to hit driver on every single hole at Memorial Park, but the rough is a bit more penal than some of these just bomb and giggles that we see over the course of the PGA Tour schedule. And then notoriously, and of course I wish I had, because I don't have any data, I don't have any correlated stats. So we'll talk through some important ones in a second. The Houston Open trying to be in front of Augusta. Sometimes what you see the week before a major championship is that course will try to simulate some things that you see in the major that's coming up to try to entice golfers to come. So what is kind of the similarities between Memorial Park and potentially at Augusta National are these really closely mown areas around the greens, collection areas, tight lies when you're trying to get up and down. So it could wreak havoc on some of the worst short game players if they are not hitting the greens. And then this is a Tom Doak design which is, he actually took input from Brooks Koepka of all people on this, which I think is kind of funny. And Tom Doak kind of known a bit for, the subtleties in the greens, right? Little ridges here and there that are kind of hard to see, not necessarily huge undulation like you might see at Augusta National next week or like some places that we get on the PGA Tour, but more subtle greens. And this is a Muni, right? You can go out and play this. It's like, I want to say it's like $40, like $50 maybe. I don't know. It's like probably the cheapest course that you could play, that the pros play, is right here in Houston. I'm trying to think what else. Alonzo Griffin is defending. We'll talk about him in a little bit. But again, not the same course. So let's look at this from a key stats perspective. So you can go through and you can look at, birdie or better percentage. You can look at any of these key stats. I've loaded the field in for you, and I have updated this now. There was a time period where, we didn't have enough 2021 data. I was kind of doing a hybrid of 2020 and 2021. Now you are getting the more recent this season data in a lot of these tools. So keep that in mind. And then, so what I can do here is I can go to scoring and do, I want to do par 5 scoring or maybe par 5 birdie or better. And there's a lot of data, so hang with me here. Okay, so let's do par 5 scoring average, and we'll be able to see who ranks well in this field. So John Huh, 6,300. Tony Finau, 10,900. Sean O'Hare, Christopher Ventura, Victor Hovland. Again, smaller sample size for some of these guys, but you're starting to get an idea of who might be able to pick apart those 5 par 5s. Tony Finau, someone we are certainly going to be talking about in depth in just one second, and a couple of Puerto Rico Open guys trying to break the curse this week in Houston. So you can mess around with this tool. I certainly think that distance is always an advantage. Being able to hit your irons is always an advantage. Strokes gained approach. I actually contributed to an article on Golf Digest that said it was asking about the most important stats week in and week out for golf wagering, and I said it was ball striking, which is strokes gained off the tee plus strokes gained approach. That to me passes both the eye test, it passes the logic test, and the math backs it up. So I always love that. And then being able to account for the increase in par 5s this week, players who might be able to putt well on Bermuda, who are playing well at the moment, some short game guys. That's the general idea of the profile of golfer that I'm looking for this week. Let's jump over to the cheat sheet and see some actual names. 5 golfers priced over $10,000, led by Dustin Johnson at $11,500, Tony Finau, Brooks Koepka, Tyrrell Hatton, Hideki Matsuyama. Let's talk about DJ first. Making his first start back since testing positive for COVID-19. That kept him out of a handful of tournaments a couple of weeks ago. So now he's playing for the first time since the US Open, and there's no doubt DJ's been awesome, right? I think he hasn't finished outside the top 12 in like his last 6 events. He has 3 wins in his last 9 starts. I mean, it's just been absolutely crazy. I guess my level of concern for DJ just comes with the price tag and the rust a little bit. I certainly do not. I'm no Dr. Fauci, right? Like I don't know what's going on with DJ, but I thought it was interesting to note that he was one of the few golfers who've tested positive for COVID this year who was actually experiencing symptoms. And I wonder if that, kept him from practicing, if it kept him from getting out there, if he's going to use this week to knock off the rust before he gets to Augusta National. And if he's just out there trying to knock off rust, we've seen when things go sideways for DJ, they go really sideways, right? I mean, 80-80 in back-to-back rounds. He missed the cut and withdrew from, I think, the Travelers. It was in that order. I mean, things can go sideways for him quickly. I don't expect anything like that, but I'm just trying to illustrate my level of concern here. And he's priced, so because the DraftKings pricing, so similarly mirrors the betting odds, he opened up 6.5 to 1, and 6.5 to 1 to me, I mean, that's reminiscent of when he would show up at the RBC Canadian Open. He would be by far the best player in the field. He'd be coming in the midst of a hot streak. Yes, I guess he's hot, but we also have a big question mark on him. This field's much better than some of those fields that we've seen. I don't think he should be 6.5 to 1, which kind of makes me think he shouldn't be 11.5. So we'll see. Wednesday on the live chat, I'll be very interested to see what that projected ownership is. I have concerns over Dustin Johnson. And spoiler alert, Tony Finau, there's a reason that I tweeted out this morning the update to the Puerto Rico Open curse, because I think it might come to a close this week. And if you don't know what the Puerto Rico Open curse is, it's so funny. It's basically anybody who's ever won the Puerto Rico Open in the last, I think that tournament started in 2008, has never won another PGA Tour event. Michael Thompson? I always confuse him. He won the Puerto Rico Open again a couple years later, but he never won another tournament. So there's now been 1,131 events that these champions have played where they've never won again, and Tony Finau won it in 2016. So that's kind of the little joke about it. It might come to an end this week. So let's look at Tony Finau's strokes gained database. And he also missed some time due to testing positive for COVID-19. But he was able to get right back at it. His first start back was Zozo. So he missed basically a month from US Open to Zozo Championship, and he finished 11th at the Zozo. He had that 8th place finish at the US Open. Yes, you could very much argue that a lot of these events were disappointments, right? I think he was in the lead at the Memorial. He ended up finishing 8th after kind of a faltering on Sunday. He was in it at, I want to say PGA or maybe BMW Championship. I mean, he's just always been involved. I mean, look at these results. 4 straight starts where he hasn't finished worse than 17th. He's been piling up top 10s all over the world, or all over the place. He's doing it in a fashion that I absolutely love, which is from tee to green, and showing the ability that the putter can get hot at times, right? That's the one thing that's always going to keep him held back a little bit. And I think he's just able to pound driver almost everywhere. We saw him pop up at on the par 5 scoring stuff. I just think that it might be Tony's week, and I think that the Puerto Rico Open curse might be coming to an end this week. Brooks Koepka, very interestingly, I mentioned it earlier. He consulted on the redesign with Tom Doak in 2019. He's only played the one event. I can pull up his strokes gained database as well. He's played one event this season, I think, and one event since, he missed that extended period of time after the Wyndham Championship with the knee injury. So he took the 2 months off, skipped out on the US Open, and came back at the CJ Cup, in which he finished in a tie for 28th. The concern for me, besides the knee, which is always a concern, Brooks Koepka's weapon over the years has been the driver, right? I mean, you see when things were going really well, he's gaining strokes off the tee in nearly every event. Sometimes he's doing it in a big way. He's gaining 3, 4, 5, 6 strokes over the course of 4 rounds. We haven't seen that version of Koepka. It seems like longer. It's really only been 4 starts, but it seems longer, right? I mean, he was barely a positive at FedEx St. Jude, which he made a run at. He finished second. But then he's lost strokes off the tee in 3 straight. The knee's always going to be a question mark for me. I'm just not ready to pay the $10,600 when I think the other guys in the $10,000 range are just fine, right? Hatton, don't forget, it doesn't show up here on the cheat sheet. He won the week before the CJ Cup over in Europe for the BMW PGA Championship. Hideki Matsuyama, I want to pull up his strokes gained, because Hideki, listen, for whatever you want to say about Hideki, he is the most on-brand golfer that we have. He's so incredibly on-brand. He is a great ball striker and a terrible putter. You can see basically every single week going back in his entire career, he's just a bad putter. Now, I will say this. Outside of this one miscut at the Shriners, he's basically been a top 25, top 30 machine. Now, my only issue with that is a top 25 doesn't really get you all that much when you're 10,000, right? If he was 8,500, like next week at Augusta, I think Hideki's a really interesting guy to look at next week, because he might be one of those guys that drops to like 8,200, something like that, right? And now you're like, wow, that's now a little bit more appealing. He has to really probably finish in the top 5 to pay for himself here at $10,000, which he hasn't necessarily shown all that much. Let's jump over to the Holy Grail. I want to run through a couple of scenarios with you guys. So inside the strokes gained database, and I probably should carve this out as its own tool, there is a button for the Holy Grail, which allows you to filter every measured round for every player on the PGA Tour dating back, 6 seasons now? Back to the start of 2015. And I think there's a couple different ways that we can do this. So of course it's a new course that we have. So I don't have any history at Memorial Park, but I could look at Houston Open stuff and I could find that, Russell Henley's been absolutely insane here. Let's do this. Let's do since the restart. So 6/1/2020 was the restart. And let's load this field in. Or this field's already loaded in, excuse me. And let's just look at the best players from strokes gained tee to green. Now, we do have a couple of guys who have very, very small sample sizes. John Huh only has 4 rounds. Lee Westwood only has 4 rounds. Camilo Villegas only has 8 measured rounds. He played in Bermuda last week, but those aren't measured. There was no shot link data there. There is Russell Henley. So here's the problem that I have with Henley, and I got to tell you this. Him at $9,400 is way better than his betting odds. All right, so I'll cover this in the betting and one and done preview later in the week. But when he's at 16-1, he has the same odds as Tony Finau and Terrell Hatton, which is like mind blowing. I know he's absolutely dominated the Houston Open, but he's never played it here before. So like you're paying for all that course history, which doesn't make any sense. Now he's been awesome recently. He's got 4 top 10s in his last 6 starts, but I'm much more comfortable paying $9,400 than I am betting him at 16-1. I probably really won't do either because now I think we're at critical mass with Russ Henley now. We talked about critical mass with Xander Schauffele a couple of weeks ago. I just like this feels wrong to me. DJ is next. He's gaining over a stroke and a half per round. From tee to green. Martin Laird, he only has 10 rounds, but he's been really good. Sergio's been good. Here's Victor Hovland. We're going to talk about that $9,000 range. Hovland has been piling up top 15 finishes. He's a very similar version of Hideki, right? He'll just tee to green you to death. He's a better putter than Hideki, but he's always going to lose around the greens. These 3 guys, very, very similar. Sergio, Victor Hovland, and Hideki Matsuyama, in which they play. And then here's Tony Finau. So when you start looking at guys with big enough sample sizes, Finau's just been absolutely great. If you want to narrow this down even more and let's say since the start of the new season, so let's say since 9/12/2020. So that would be since the start of the 2021 season. Now you're going to get really small sample sizes. DJ still leads the way, but he only has 4 rounds. Villegas, same guys. Oh, Scott Stallings. Scott Stallings has been pretty good. He only has 6 measured rounds. He's been great from tee to green. Doc Redman, of course, has been great. He's $8,800. So, you can change this any way you want. You can mess around with these filters, but I absolutely love this tool. Gives you an opportunity to slice and dice any way that you like. $9,000 range mentioned. Victor Hovland, I think he's fine. Henley, I probably won't get to. So I'll be interested to see on Wednesday what Scotty Scheffler comes in at. It was a tough... Scheffler was one of the hottest players on earth before he tested positive for COVID, and he missed the U.S. Open. And then he came back, and it's been a little bit of a slow restart for him, but the Zozo Championship, his last start, was his best finish. So maybe he's turning the corner a little bit. Maybe he's getting back into form, and I love what he does. He's such a birdie maker, right? Always very valuable in terms of his DraftKings scoring versus his actual finish in the tournament. Here's Lanto. So Lanto Griffin, if you follow the flow chart, he's over $7,000. You can't play him. Now, he's obviously getting a big boost at $8,900 because he's the defending champion. You can throw that out the window, but I do think you need... So I'll be interested because I think a lot of people are going to say Lanto Griffin at $8,900. No chance am I paying that, which I don't think is wrong. But what I see from Lanto, at least recently, is a 7th at the CJ Cup, an 11th at the Zozo Championship. So not only is he a defending champion, which doesn't matter, he's playing well right now. And he's doing it in a way that is volatile good, right? Like if we did volatile good, volatile bad, consistent good, consistent bad, like they're, the 4 quadrants, this would be like volatile good. So he is a very good approach player. He gains about a 0.7 of a stroke per round on approach. His putting is also something that he relies on, which is kind of bad. But the good news about Lanto is if he hits his irons well, gives himself enough opportunities, sometimes that putter just catches absolute fire and he rolls everything in and he finishes in the top 10 of a golf tournament, or he contends, or like last year, he wins it, right? So he is at least volatile good. If his projected ownership comes in at, I don't know, 11%, 9% on Wednesday, I'd be a lot more interested in him. Doc Redman, you know how I feel about Doc. He's a great ball striker. He continues to knock on the door. He's going to break through at one point. I'm lining him up to get him on the pod. Like, as soon as he wins, I'm going to try to get him on the pod. We'll get him back on soon. We've had a couple of conversations with him. I mean, his game's just so sharp. A little unfortunate he wasn't able to close it out last week, but he's the real deal. Here's one that's interesting is Corey Connors at 8,700. So you want to talk about guys that really struggled after the restart. I mean, Corey Connors is absolutely one of them. And Corey Connors falls into that team, hashtag team no putt category. I mean, you can see these are his career progression, just an aggregate running total of his strokes gained. And he is just straight up and to the right for strokes gained off the tee and strokes gained approach, and quite the opposite around the green, and putting is just absolutely poor. But what we've saw from him in two of his last three starts is really good. So here's his 17th place finish at the Sanderson Farms, where he gained 5.7 strokes ball striking. That's great. And then he was an average putter. The Zozo Championship, he gains 3 strokes on ball striking and another 2.5 putting. I mean, he is now in his last 4 measured starts. So I don't have the Punta Cana data because there wasn't any shot link data there. I mean, he has basically gained strokes in 3 out of 4 of them, and he only lost less than a stroke putting at the CJ Cup. That's good trends. We might be trying to get on Corey Connors a bit early, but I think that is a good trend to consider if you're down in the $8,000 range. The bottom of the 8K range, Cam Davis, 8,100, continues to be interesting. I think he's on like an 8 cut streak right now. 8 consecutive cuts made. It's one of the longest in this field. It's starting to become one of the longest on tour. All the raw talent in the world. I like that he's going to be able to hit driver around this place on every hole if he can dial it in. Again, I think the rough will be just a hair more penal than most expect in some of these fields. I think that Cameron Davis has an opportunity, but I mean, join me, guys. I'm not going to miss on the Denny McCarthy victory, and this is something we've been tracking for a couple of months now, and I actually did get some confirmation. I don't know if he wants to be outed here, but I did get confirmation from a source that I trust who did confirm that Denny McCarthy has been working with a new swing coach, and that this is what we've been talking about. I pointed this out a couple of weeks ago. I mean, look at the trend from the 3M Open of what Denny McCarthy's been doing. He's been turning around both off the tee and approach. Now it makes sense that matches up with what's actually going on in real life, that he's trying to find something with a new coach. The results are there. He's got a couple of top 10 finishes in his last couple of starts. Now, this doesn't even show, this is the strokes gained database. So this doesn't even show the Bermuda Championship since there were no strokes gained data there. He shot a 663 on Sunday, which was the low round of the day, and finished in a tie for 4th. So he's got 3 top 10 finishes in his last 8 starts, something like that. Already one of the best putters. I'm sorry, let me clarify, the best putter on earth. Now becoming a much better ball striker. Denny's going to win. He's going to win. I don't know if it's this week. I don't know if it's, I was going to say next week. I don't know if it's a couple of weeks from now. Like, Denny's going to win, and I'm going to be a part of it. Like, I can't wait for it to happen. It's going to be awesome. All right. 7Ks. So Denny was in that 7K range. This is a range of guys I don't really love, right? You've got Emiliano Grillo here, who I don't usually play a lot of. HV3 coming off of a really disappointing missed cut, now headed back stateside, trying to rekindle some of that magic. I would probably buy back in on HV3. He was one of the most popular golfers on the slate last week. When a guy like that burns you and he drops in price and really nothing has changed, it's usually an opportunity to buy back in. But the guy I think sub 7K I'm most interested in, I mean, stop me if you've heard this before, it's Mackenzie Hughes. And the reason that I like Hughes is I mentioned at the top in the course preview, the closely mown areas, right? The areas around the greens that I think, if guys are missing the fair or missing the greens, are going to be troublesome. Mackenzie Hughes is kind of a short game specialist, right? I mean, he loses strokes off the tee, he loses strokes on approach, but he gains it in both of the short game categories. And we haven't seen him really pop since, what would this be? Punta Cana, his third place finish. Didn't really make much noise at the two invitationals, the Zozo and the CJ Cup. But you have to remember, I mean, looking back a bit further on Mackenzie Hughes, it doesn't matter what field, it doesn't matter what course. He finds a way to finish in the top 10. So a second at the Honda, third at the Travelers, sixth at the Memorial. I mean, I'm looking at this, and he's got like quick count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 top 15s in his last 15 starts, 14 starts, something like that. I mean, nearly like 40% of them, he's finished inside the top 15. He is a bit more volatile than some of these other guys, but I continue to think that, especially a place that might require some skills around the greens, that Hughes is of value this week. I'll pause here and I'll go to the breakout candidates, because I always forget to show this, right? And this is under trends again. This should probably be broken out as its own tool, because I feel like it gets buried in the cheat sheet and a lot of people forget about it. But here's where you can see the hottest players and the nottest players, right? The guys who are not hot based on any of the strokes gained categories. And then you can also look at this and find guys that are hitting it well from tee to green, but are really getting unlucky with their putters. And I actually think Wyndham Clark showed up last week as well. And he is also another one of these guys who is in the upper left-hand quadrant, which is where you want to be for this week. He finished second last week. He lost in a playoff to Brian Gay. Who else is in here? Sung J M is in here. Jason Day is in here. Jason Day, I think, is interesting, right? Because, yeah, he didn't play well at, when did we see him? He didn't play Bermuda. He played the week before. Zozo? This is going to kill me. Now I got to go look. Jason Day. Yeah, Zozo. Okay. But he was playing well here at the CJ Cup. So on paper, it looks like a missed cut, or it looks like a withdrawal, because he WD'd like after his first hole on Sunday, and he was in the top 10. So it's really interesting. Just the straight box score, just the straight results look worse than it actually is for Jason Day. And then you look at, the breakout candidates, and you say, well, he's hitting the ball really well. He's putting below his baseline. So if that baseline comes back a little bit, Jason Day could find himself in a really good spot. Scotty Scheffler's on the correct quadrant. Patrick Rogers on the correct quadrant, say that 5 times fast. So those are guys that I think are interesting. Jason Day's pretty appealing. I don't know what his price is. We can go back and look up his price. He might be too expensive. We'll see what his ownership is as the week goes on to 9,000. Just people don't like to play him because they know that there's a lingering withdrawal risk there. Christopher Ventura, here you go. He's 7,300. This to me is a make or break tournament. This to me is, he's got the 2 top 7 finishes in his last 4 starts, but the most recent 2 are 2 missed cuts in places that probably should have been pretty good fits for him. So now I think we find out what Ventura is. Were the 2 top 10s kind of fluky, or are the 2 missed cuts kind of fluky, right? And of course, not only one tournament that's going to decide. It's not going to decide it this week. But I do think it's kind of a small inflection point for him, for what this season's going to look like. So this is kind of where you have to decide if you're a Ventura believer or not. I think at this price, I still am. I will not have I will not be super overexposed to Christopher Ventura, but I'm going to give him one more crack at this. Kind of in the same way I gave one more crack to Patrick Rogers last week. I'm usually a little, I'm a good guy. I like to forgive a little bit. 7,100. We'll continue to talk about Adam Schenk until he misses a cut. What is he up to now? 10 in a row? 11 in a row? One of the longest active streaks on the PGA Tour. He actually, I think, faltered or just faded a bit on the weekend because he was inside the top, I want to say 15 for a while. He was in my core. If you're talking about making cuts, Adam Schenk continues to find a way to make cuts. Will I go back to Ollie Schneider, Jans? No, probably not, right? He's got one start, doesn't even qualify for stats. He actually doesn't even, so little look behind the curtain. For guys that don't have a ton of don't have status, I have to repopulate their stats manually, which is sometimes why at first crack they don't show up here. So it's that. I don't know. Ollie's always been a DFS, little sweetheart. People love to bet him or love to play him. I'll probably take a pass. Sub 6K mentioned Scott Stallings. He was a name that popped up because you can see right here. He is, and actually we should look at these. I always forget there's so many good little tools here that I never show you guys. Let's just look at this through the ranks, right? So if we go down to 69, where is he? 6,900. Scott Stallings 14th in strokes gained approach this season. He's got a 26th place finish last week. He had a 6th place at, what was that? Zozo? CJ Cup? Shriners, Sanderson Farms, one of them. Let me scroll this up so we can, we'll do it like this. So there we go. He's hitting the ball well. Tee to green's pretty good. Obviously around the green is troublesome. Putting is troublesome, but you compare to his peers down here, pretty solid ball striking. And you can kind of go through these. So here's tee to green. Here's Jinzun Zhang, 40th in strokes gained tee to green this season. He's being priced as the 100th golfer in this field. John Hunt, again, he's popped up everywhere because he's got 4 rounds. He's got 4 rounds at the Shriners where he finished in the top 20, was great on approach. That's why he's showing up. You can decide whether you want to believe in the four measured rounds or not, but I like looking at this by round. So anecdotally, sub 7K, who did I mention? Scott Stallings. I still believe in Patrick Rogers. I'm not ready to give up on that. He did make the cut last week at $6,700. If he makes the cut again, I think you're pretty happy with that. Who else down here? Zhang would only be an option in terms of GPPs and something very, very volatile. That's probably it. I'm not sure what builds look like this week. We're going to do a model before we get out of here. Not sure if this is looking like stars or scrubs or if it's looking like a more balanced build. I'll kind of, hammer that out over the course of the week. So make sure to tune in Wednesday for the live chat. But let's do a custom model here. So here's a custom model. You can put your weights in. So let me think about this. All right. I want distance. So I want to do 20 on distance, but I want to do 10 on accuracy because I do think that, normally I don't really care about accuracy, but I do think that just a little bit of penal rough. I want to do, let's break out tee to green like this. Let's do 20 on approach and 10 around the green. So I want approach players because that's, one of the most important stats. And then because of the way that they have those green side areas, I'm going to go with strokes gained around the green. And then I want to put a pretty heavy emphasis on par 5s and par 3s because there are, I don't have that many weights left because there are 5 of each. So actually let's just split it out evenly then. If there's 5 par 5s and 5 par 3s, let's spread out our weights and we'll run this model. Oh boy. Okay. So my number 1 ranked golfer, based on my model, is Terrell Hatton. He's 10,300. Then Hideki, then DJ, then Scotty Scheffler and Harold Varner III. Interesting. Tony Finau, Cam Davis, Adam Scott. That's a name I did not say one word about. And I think this is his first start back since testing positive for COVID, right? So that's a guy that I discovered in this custom model. Will Gordon, Aaron Wise are guys that I probably would not have considered. But this is interesting because these are a lot of guys that I like, right? A lot of guys that I talked through with the gut side of it also being matched by the model. But my number 1 golfer by a pretty significant margin, Terrell Hatton, I don't mind that. I don't mind that one bit. 3 wins in his last 15 starts worldwide. Maybe he's my first man in instead of Tony Finau. I've got time to figure it out. We'll think through it together. Don't forget, you can join me Wednesday, 3 p.m. Eastern time. Rick Run Good YouTube channel. We will go live. We'll do ownership. We will do questions and answer. We'll check in any weather if that's going to be an issue. Hopefully we don't have to talk about any positive COVID tests, but that's probably when they would come out. Fingers crossed, especially because that means you're probably not playing Augusta either. But yeah, let me know what you think. Tweet me at RickRunGood. Leave a comment below. Best of luck this week. Later.